guys, Natalie Willis here from the Baby Sleep Trainer. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a response video. Now this is a video you've probably seen, but I haven't. We're going to be watching Mayim Bialik's video on co-sleeping, and we're going to watch along together, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts on what I'm hearing and seeing. Let's dive right in.
The APA has made general recommendations not to sleep with babies, and I appreciate that they are erring on the side of extreme caution. And I think that what a lot of people don't know is that safe co-sleeping is not contraindicated. There should be no surfaces that baby can slide into, no extra pillows and blankets. You should not be under any influences of anything that make you unable to be woken up easily. Safe co-sleeping is meaningful, it makes sense, it is normal, and it's natural. And for some people it doesn't work for them, but for us we've had no problems at all with safety, and that's true for the thousands of families that do that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna completely agree that I would say actually more than thousands of families. I would venture to guess that co-sleeping is the default for pretty much every family at some point. It's really the rarity that you'll find a family that's never co-slept with their baby. And then I think a lot of families co-sleep and just sort of don't talk about it. I don't know that I would go so far as to say that co-sleeping is contraindicated by the American Academy of Pediatrics. The AAP has a tendency to obviously update their recommendations. So now I think because they recognize and accept that even if you tell parents not to, they're going to co-sleep. How do we do so safely? One thing that I wish she had dived into a little bit more, and obviously this is a short video, how to co-sleep safely. Really, truthfully, the only way to safely co-sleep is in a completely empty room with a mattress on the floor, not on any kind of bed frame, and really there shouldn't be any blankets or pillows or anything of any kind. You should basically just be sleeping on like a mat on the floor. The safest place for a baby to sleep is completely alone in a crib. That's the safest place. But we make choices and trade-offs every day in our lives that, you know, every choice that we make has a cost. Every time we get in the car, that's risky, right? So if you are finding that your baby room sharing is waking you up more, maybe they're room sharing in a crib by themselves, they're not co-sleeping, and somehow that's making you wake up more, but co-sleeping is something that helps get you more sleep, and you feel that you're doing it the safest way possible, and you've discussed it with your pediatrician, I'm gonna say there's a risk to what you're doing, but that doesn't mean that that's not a choice that you should make for your family. I don't know that there's really any way that that co-sleeping can ever be as safe as a baby sleeping alone in an empty crib, but life is full of gray areas, and while I always recommend that babies sleep alone in a crib or in a pack and play, the reality is that most families will choose to co-sleep at some point, so doing it as safely as possible and knowing how to co-sleep safely is really, really important.
Once you make the decision to have kids in your sleeping area, it definitely shifts the intimacy in your relationship. But I guess having kids shifts that intimacy anyway, so sometimes it means getting more creative to find ways that you can connect with your spouse or with your partner so that you still feel loving and loved within the realms of what you also are choosing for your family that works sleep-wise.
I talk in a lot of my videos about how your identity changes when you have children, and who you are changes, and the reason that that changes isn't because things that you are in a part of your essence of who you are necessarily go away, but it's because your priorities change, and your priorities are often going to change based around your child's needs, and that's why every child that you have will have different needs, and you can have two siblings that, but for being blood related, are completely different and opposite of one another. And so if you have decided in your home that co-sleeping is something that you want to do, like she is saying, and that might mean that your priorities are shifting, and your sex life with your partner isn't going to be the top priority. I'm here to tell you that it's probably not going to be the top priority in the first several months, maybe even the year. It can be a top priority if you decide to make it a top priority, but unless you are making sure that that is a priority, right, it's probably going to take the back seat to a lot of other things, like the amount of time you're spending caring for your child, and just where, especially as a mom, you are mentally, emotionally, and physically. I will say that I know of many families that choose to co-sleep that still have an active sex life. And I'm going to say that for some people, if they have a higher sex drive, whether it's one partner or both, just because your child sleeps in your bed, it might make it so that you finding a way to have sex with your partner an even higher priority. So there are other times and places and spaces to have sex. And even for people who have their child sleeping alone in a crib in their own room and they have time in the evening, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to desire having sex more. So I would say that I haven't really co-slept extensively, so I can't say this specifically for myself, but having a baby in general can dampen your sex drive, and I don't know that co-sleeping dampens it further than any other situation. So if it's still a priority for you, I agree with her. You really can find other ways to do it.
The notion that babies and even young children and even toddlers need to be able to put themselves to sleep as soon as possible is not supported by any scientific evidence. It's simply convention in a culture that really highly prizes early independence, but it's not necessarily the only way to get a child who can put themselves to sleep. Eventually, our older son did learn to put himself to sleep. He sleeps all night by himself, happy. He is near to us if he needs us. And our 3.5-year-old is on his way to doing the same. So it may not be the time frame that we're told it should be, but there really is no statistical or scientific reason why it has to be done in the first 6 months, in the first year, or in the first 3 years.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. The skill of independent sleep in and of itself is not a milestone that parents should feel that they have to reach it by a certain age. I actually might equate it with like potty training. Parents feel this pressure to have their child potty trained by a certain age, but really when it comes down to it, your child might need more time. It's not immoral for a child not yet to be potty trained. It's not immoral for a child to not yet know how to fall asleep independently. Where I would, I guess, reframe what she is saying is that absolutely our society, especially in the US, it prizes independence, period, and absolutely is like, well, the earlier you're able to do things, the better. Sure, I'm sure there are two sides of that coin. Some things are better about being independent, there are costs to that as well. But what I would say is most important is the parents and what they want for their own home. I find that there are parents, mothers especially, who within the first 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, that dependence that their child has on them is extremely triggering and can bring on postpartum mood disorders, and it's very disruptive to their sleep, and just that particular element is making it hard for them to be mentally healthy or maybe do their job or parent their other kids or whatever factors might be going on. So if you feel ready for your child to be an independent sleeper, that is a good time to sleep train them. If you feel like what's happening in your home is sustainable, whether you're co-sleeping or something else, great. There's no reason to feel like you have to do this by any certain time. So I will say that it's not necessarily that you shouldn't feel like there's this benefit and society should be telling you to do this. It's that you should decide for yourself when you feel it would be most beneficial for your child, for yourself, and for your family, for your child to achieve the skill of independent sleep. So I guess I would say in conclusion that like most things in life, even though you feel like you may have a polar opposite opinion on something else and on something with another person, like you might think you're on this side and this person is on this side, when you really listen to what somebody has to say, you'll find that most of the time you and that other person are far more aligned and far closer than you think. And most of the time people actually have agreement on about 80% of what they're talking about. And I would say that's how I feel about the video I just watched. I pretty much agreed and was in alignment with almost everything that she said. I have a feeling that if she heard me talk about, if you find that this skill of independent sleep is something that you need in your family for yourself and your child to be healthier, and that's a determination you have made, and you are teaching your child how to sleep independently in a safe way, I have a feeling she would probably be like, yes, I am in alignment with that. And at the end of the day, she needs to do what is right for her family, and I need to do what's right for my family. And as long as it's safe, that's really the only thing that you really need to be concerned about. Also, by the way, I love Blossom. She was a big part of my upbringing, and Six, and that other really cute Lawrence brothers that was in that show. If you like what you're hearing and you like what I have to say, make sure that you subscribe and also hit the bell, and join me next time.